Our students come from lower middle, working class backgrounds. Most of them come out of public schools. And I think part of the dilemma here is that while some of us would like to facilitate our students to think creatively and to think independently, most of them have gone through educational systems that have told them just the reverse. Don't question, don't ask. Here's the book, here's the notes. Paulo Freire, who was a Brazilian educator, talked about this as the banking concept of knowledge, where traditionally education takes information and deposits in the student's mind. And the student is supposed to hold on to it, and then for papers or tests, basically take it out and repeat it verbatim. This is not a creative development. I don't think this is real education.
I would say that, number one, the students are taking too many courses and having to work full-time to try and go to school. Now, most people cannot work a 40-hour week and take a 15 to 18 credit program and be very successful. So that's a major problem I'm seeing. And of course, we have many parents who are both full-time workers, full-time parents, and full-time students.
It's really, really difficult because I work 5 days a week, I go to school 5 days a week. So I come to school and then I run to work and then I get home really late in the afternoon. And when you get home really late and you're tired, it's kind of hard to do homework.
Well, in the beginning I did. In the beginning I did work part-time, and it wasn't that much of a problem. Then I got a full-time job and I did it for a year. So I was taking classes full-time and going to work full-time, and that almost drove me crazy.
I come from Suffolk County in Long Island, and it's about 4 hours just with travel time a day, and I'm here full-time. So that's a lot, but I mean, the train is quiet, so I could do it there or do work there.
Well, I would advise somebody who has a similar situation like me with children and having to come to school, especially if they just start in school, to try to be disciplined and try to concentrate on what you have to do at a particular time. Try to concentrate on your assignments. It's good to have friends and it's good to have peers that you work with, but you have to make sure you filter out the bad vibes.
I think that the students here need to take ownership of language. That for so many of them, English is their second language, or it's the second language of their parents. And there's a lack of confidence derived from, as a result of this, not having a sense of ownership. And they need to do that, and it is more difficult, first because they may not have that inherently, that sense of ownership, but second of all, because of the extra work involved.
Santayana once said, if I believe it was him, when one has two languages, one has two souls. So I have two souls inhabiting my body. So those two sides, American, Dominican, and whatnot, they're constantly in dispute with each other.
The problem students have will probably be the same whether English is first language or not, which is really, because it's the matter of content. And then if, students have enough time to work on the content and then have enough time to revise and then work on and on and on again, then, the finishing product will be absolutely better.
The City College of New York serves a multicultural student population with complex economic and linguistic backgrounds. We help faculty teach critical thinking through the City University Writing Fellows program, which includes sending PhD students from the University Graduate Center to work with faculty in their classrooms. Our Writing Across the Curriculum program supports faculty by integrating reading and writing activities in their classrooms.
For me, writing gives my students a chance to reflect, and that's sort of why I'm interested in writing.
I think that writing is a tool that students need to help them consolidate their knowledge about learning, and it reinforces what they've been learning at the level of speaking and listening.
In the process of writing, students really are in a lot of ways consolidating their understanding, and just the act of writing and trying to put into words something they think they understand makes them aware of probably the things they don't understand about it, but it also is really, it really is part of the thought process itself in putting things together.
To really develop critical thinking skills and critical analysis of any subject, the only way, I mean, it's like writing a research, I mean, the whole idea of research, it's like you have to attack it again and again and again. You have to, you know, come at it from all these different angles, and it just can't be one go at it.
I use writing as a thinking tool in my courses. Writing is critical to representing what you think, how you think, and also to representing yourself to other people. It's the primary way that someone who is educated or who has academic training communicates. So being able to express yourself in writing is being able to share your thinking. It's being able to, particularly in psychology, share your critical thinking.
I remember the first peer review session that we did. That was amazing, because I have never had anybody read my papers before. I always write them myself and just hand them in. And for the first time, I had classmates of mine who sat down, looked at my paper and said, "This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong." I was like, wow, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? So after they asked me all these questions, I clearly saw why some of my professors were always saying, the ideas are good, but they don't flow because it's not clearly expressed.
The objection that students always raised to that initially when they weren't really used to this process is they said, look, I'm not an expert. How can I review another student's writing? I don't know any more than they do. And of course that's a reasonable concern. One of the things that we did to try to, first of all, I guess, alleviate their concerns and their hesitations, but also really to give them guidance, is we developed a rubric for each one of these pieces of the scientific paper. And so they really had guidelines to go by.
I hated writing. I always felt like I was a horrible writer, and I love to read. I read like crazy, but I just hate to write. And I've always been kind of sad because I thought, you know, if I did read a lot, it would really improve my writing, but somehow it just doesn't. But last semester when I started journal writing for my teaching in science of education course, I almost felt like a freedom of I could write about whatever I want, and I didn't have to write in a certain format. I could write however I wanted. And in my journal writings, I could come up with my own questions about the reading material we were reading, and I was free to write however I want and do research about whatever I read however I want. Or I didn't have to do research. I could just write whatever I was feeling or thinking. And I think that really improved my writing.
The journals I see as several-fold. One is that the students in most cases take notes during class anyway. They take notes when they're reading an assignment or doing a research project. All that is part of the journal, number one. Secondly, I use the journal as basically the raw data for their final paper. So as they're going through in terms of what's happening in class, if they visit a museum, if they visit a building or a piece of architecture, if they're doing a reading, if they're watching a movie, as they reflect on this to get their ideas down, and this is all their research, and then the final paper poses questions for them to respond to of what, not only what conclusions they've come to, but what process they've gone through to reach these conclusions.
I think the fear factor is more related to not having the opportunity to do what I think I've been taught by my writing fellows and writing colleagues. Not having the opportunity to do low stakes writing, always having a high premium put on writing. So if you ask students to turn in their final paper at the end of the semester and you haven't given them any opportunities to do any writing where there's less of a consequence, let's say, for their writing, then they're afraid because this final product is going to be half of their grade and they have to do a written project, and that tends to make students very afraid of writing.
The students to start with small assignments to gradually build into larger assignments, and in particular to have a comfortable facility with the language that we use, because in each course there are specific theorists or specific theoretical language that we use in order to organize our understanding of that area. And so it's important, it's crucial that before they're writing a big paper, that the language, that they incorporate the language that they're going to learn as students, and that they have a facility with that language. And so for me, the best way to gain a sense of expertise and a sense of competence with that language is to practice it in small exercises.
I mean, I've heard some professors say, I want students to go and take their highlighters and throw them away. I don't know if I would state it that strongly, because for some people that might be beneficial, but definitely doing a close reading, taking notes when reading, annotation when reading, even if the professor hasn't assigned it. I think those are definitely skills that will help the student when they then need to create the writing assignment.
When I'm writing a paper or working on my dissertation or coming up with some new ideas, I tend to jot down a lot of notes. Or if I'm reading a difficult text, I write a lot of notes about the author's language. I try to put things in my own words. I make critical comments. These are all things that I've tried to integrate into the kinds of materials that I've developed as a writing fellow, because I think that they're important thinking tools. I think writing is a vehicle for good critical thinking.
What I did is I worked on the writing program as part of an elective I do called Architecture and Education. And the basis of it was a group of students, and what they were assigned to do is every week they would have a reading. And every other week they would come in with a written response to whatever was given out.
The process of revising and looking over the work and taking a break from it and like giving it to other people to read and criticize has been instrumental, and really though I can't imagine any other. I don't know how I used to do it, just turning in papers straight off, printing them after one go at it. It just seems like, actually, it sort of makes sense, because I used to turn in those papers, and when, sometimes I would get an A, and other times I would get a C, and I'd be like, why? What's missing? And it really is, becoming more and more clear to me that writing is a process of revision.
Write. You have to do it. Write poetry, write anything. Just keep on writing.
It should be something that should stick for the rest of your life. Revise, revise, revise.
And one of the problems that I think faculty always have is when they grade writing assignments, they assume that what they've seen is their students' best effort in a writing project, when probably what they've seen is their students' best effort at writing a first draft.
Has always been what City College provides to the students here. I mean, it has always been access not only to City College, but access to whatever rung of society the student wants to continue on into. And that will always be a function of the ability to communicate.
We owe it to each graduate to give them what they need to enter the conversations of the world.